remember we were in Chicago, and a high school student raised his hand. He said, well, how far can I go with my girlfriend? And I said, well, what do you have in mind? And he was kind of like, he had a lot of stuff he was thinking of. And I said, pick one. And he picked something that was pretty sexual, wasn't sex. And I said, well, I'll have you answer your own question. And I took him through a scenario of, do you want to get married one day? And he said, yeah, I do. And then I said, okay, well, that means your future wife is out there somewhere right now. And he started to think about it. And I said, okay, well, now how far do you want some guy who you're never going to meet going with your future wife tonight? And everybody knows, get your hands off her. I'm going to shoot you if you touch her. It's because why would we set such a high standard of innocence for our future spouses, yet for ourselves we have a totally different standard? And so what I would say is how far, don't go so far that you would never want to tell your future spouse about the things you did with someone you never met. Don't expect your future spouse to be more pure than you're being right now. Also, when you have a daughter one day, how far you want some guy to go with your little princess? These answers are real easy. I don't want any guy to touch my daughter. I don't want anyone fooling around with my little sister. Nobody better touch my future wife, but then we live like, I can do whatever I want with your future wife, but you better not touch mine. And so it's almost this double standard. And so I think to get that answer of how far is too far, you got to look inside your own heart. Practice the purity you would want your future spouse to practice for you. And you wouldn't be thinking, well, go all the way, but just don't have sex. Or if you're going to have sex, at least have safe sex tonight, honey. No, you're thinking, why don't you save yourself for me? Because we're going to have the rest of our lives to share that awesome gift together. And how many sexual memories do I really want to have of people other than my spouse? And so, but I think to get to the heart of the issue, it's the wrong question. What are we really asking is how far can we go to get them away from God? How far can we go towards sin? If that's the question, what we need is a real change of heart. We need to start asking, how far can I get her to God? How far can I go to guard her innocence? How far can I show to express my real love for her? And until we have that change of heart, we're going to be living off of just trying to find boundaries. Tell me the 5 things I can't do. And what we're going to do then is we're going to go right up to that boundary all the time. And we're going to be pushing it forward. And before you know it, we're just going to fall. Nothing will be left but sex. And eventually that's going to be gone too. And so what we ultimately need to answer that question is a change of heart. Not from how far can I go towards sin, but how can I go to get her towards God? And then I think if we get to that point, then we're really capable of love. And that's what we want in the first place, is love.
It's still important, to have, some idea of what you can and can't do. Like, is kissing okay? Is holding hands okay? Yeah. Should you keep all your clothes on, stuff like that?
No, people do need specifics, and purity isn't about following a list of rules, but in the same respects, we need some guidelines. And the guideline that I put out there, sexual arousal belongs in marriage. And if we can come to the agreement that sex does belong in marriage, children belong in marriage, it's the proper context. If that's the case, how can we get all sexually revved up and then think that we can just slam on the brakes every time from now when we start dating in high school to the time we get married when we're 27 years old? And so if we think we're going to get revved up with a girlfriend or boyfriend and then just slam on the brakes every time, the brakes are going to give out. And so we have to establish our goal. What is our goal? Our goal is purity. Our goal is to save ourselves to marriage. And if that's the goal, how are we going to get there? Are we going to get there by having these passionate, hot, steamy make-out sessions? The men are more sexually aroused than women are, more quickly at least. And that's why a guy's sexuality, a girl's sexuality is compared to like an iron. You plug it in and it takes a while and it heats up. The arousal curve is very gradual. The guy's arousal isn't like an iron, it's like a light bulb. You just take it's on, it's very instantaneous. And girls don't often realize this by the way they dress, by the way they act. I had heard once that a girl reaches her sexual peak at the age of 35. And it's not when sex is best, but when it's most on the mind. But guys reach theirs at the age of 18. So, if you're sitting on the couch snuggling with your boyfriend, you're thinking, oh, this is cute, we're watching The Notebook, I feel warm and fuzzy, great. Good for you, your sexual peak in 2 decades from now, But as for him, he's going to hit his sexual peak in, 3 minutes from now, so they're wired very differently. So when it comes to setting boundaries, what I would recommend is sexual arousal belongs in marriage, so that things that deliberately sexually arouse you, you should save for marriage. And that'll create greater bonding between you and your spouse. And so passionate make-out sessions, I don't think, belong in a dating relationship. They're just going to want to make you go further and further. And sexual arousal, that's the way God designed us, especially as men. We're not satisfied until we're relieved. We're not sexually satisfied with just a little bit. There's a 50 Cent song, all I really need is a little bit, not a lot, baby girl, just a little bit. That's a lie. He's not satisfied with a little bit. He wants all of it. But in the same respect, he doesn't want all of the woman. He just wants a little bit of her, and then he's going to move on to the next. You know, he's not man enough to handle a whole woman. He wants to reduce them to bits. But when it comes to our sexuality, we're not meant to be given in bits. And it's almost like a forest fire. Like if I gave you a lighter and I took you to a lake filled with gasoline, and I said, now just light the first 5 gallons, okay? And you're like, okay, you know, eyebrows are burnt off. You can't just light a couple gallons. And it's the same thing with sexual arousal. Once you ignite the flame, it's like a forest fire, and it won't stop burning until everything in its path is consumed. And so sexuality is something good. It's something beautiful. It's like fire. You know, it's a good gift, and it belongs in the fireplace. You take it out of the fireplace, and it soon becomes destructive. And so when it comes to our sexuality, I know from my own relationships, the more pure I've been with a girl, the easier it is to be pure. The more I try to sit on the fence of purity and say, yeah, I know we're technically not going to have sex, but, you know, we're still going to do this other stuff. The more I sat on the fence, the more hard it was to stay pure. And so if you really understand that your goal is purity, the more innocence you have, the easier it's going to be to maintain that.